Morning. Yeah, I thought I would stream this because I kind of talked about some issues that I was having with the profile component in my retro on Sunday. So yeah, I made some progress there, and I also think like the new challenge that I'm working through it'll be good to talk about on here. It's kind of ties together the front end and the back end, and this would be a good thing to debug together. So what I've got now is I've fixed the duplicate in the profile bug where we were seeing two of each player. That was actually a separate issue where I had created duplicates in the team's database, which was like the only one that I didn't check. So that was because yeah, when I dropped the players database, I forgot that the function that I used to populate the players also populated the team's database. So it just did that again, and I ended up with double teams. So that was kind of yeah, like this function. No, this function, populate DB. Yeah, so I added this dev note, and now I'll pretty much never have to add the teams unless I want to change something about the team's data. But you know, it's 30 teams; they pretty much always stay that way. So this could just stay commented out until I really need it. But today we're going to talk about the user component, which we could see that like my account value is still 1,000 when I reran my Python scripts and when I had been invested in all of these players, and two of them went up. So this guy went up by $10 or 11, yeah, 10 bucks, and I had 2 shares of him. So that means that my account value should go up by $21 plus this 20 cents right here because I had 2 shares, 40 cents. I had 2 shares of him. So we're not seeing that. Obviously, like I defaulted my account to $1,000, and here in my equity plus my cash, this is also equaling 1,000. But if we added up all of our numbers here, it would already be over 1,000 plus our $8 in cash. So this is because I'm essentially tracking the equity piece of data incorrectly. And I think we'll be able to see that because I track that when you make a trade, and I should really be calculating that in the database like every time we render this component, or at least in some kind of systematic way. So here's my users, and this one's going to be me. And yeah, stock value, this should really be called equity, but this is up to 991, and cash is, so this is what we're pulling into the UI right here. And I update this value when you make a trade. That it's just like a put request to the users table or the users endpoint, where I say find the active user and subtract the right amount of cash, add the right amount of equity. So if we're pulling that into the user component, that's pretty much incorrect because it's static and it's fixed to the point in time when you make that trade. So we want it to be dynamic and we want it to reference the current value of the investments that you hold, the equity one at least. So this can stay static. If you make a trade, you should be subtracted that amount of cash. That's not going to change. Let's look at where some of these things happen. Pretty sure it's all in the trade button. Yeah, there's a ton of requests in here. But we should go back. Fetch position store trade is these two requests, which is a post to the trades API and then a put to the user's API. And the put sends this trade value. And it sends the trade value with the function update stock value. So let's do one of those and check out what happens to our API. And then we'll look at the code and we'll see why it's wrong. So if we want to, let's go back. Yeah, if we want to sell one share of Adamococa, ooh, didn't like that. Why didn't that show up right away? Let's make sure that we're not just being slow here. That seemed like possibly a bug. Yeah. Oh, well, I guess it's just maybe lagging a little, but yeah, sell popped up. So if we want to sell one share, then we will be alerted that we did that. And then we'll get our post request and our put request coming through to the back end. So the trade value comes to negative $3.21. And let's see how we're going to process that. So we want to find put for the user's endpoint. And what we did was update stock value. So let's go to this function. And what we do is we say increment the stock value by the trade value, which we passed through. It was negative 3.1. So that'll subtract. That's what's nice about increment with Mongo is you could do positive and negative. You don't have to like do a condition for plus and minus. And then trade is the opposite. So trade value times -1. Cash. Cash, we do the opposite too. So we multiply by -1 and they'll go up and down respectively, depending on whether it was a buy or a sell. So pretty much, I don't want to do this anymore, but I'm just going to leave this for now. I don't really think this is going to affect us all that much. What I actually want to do is add a completely different endpoint. So what we're doing when we load this page is we're getting all of the users from the database. This doesn't make sense. Like, we don't need to return all of the users and then loop through them in JavaScript and say, all right, find the one that's signed in. We should really figure that out with the database and only return the user that's signed in. And then, since we're already in the database, we can do some calculations there that are going to give us the correct account value. So that's what I want to set up right now. A completely different endpoint where we're only going to get the user that we're interested in, because we don't need to pull all of our users. Like, eventually, if there's a lot of users in here, it just won't be efficient. It'll be expensive to pull all of the users into the front end and then like find the one that's signed in with JavaScript. That it doesn't really make sense. So yeah, new endpoint. That's what we're going to add, where we get the user that's signed in on purpose. So here's how I think that process is going to look. Here's where I have just like all my constants. I am going to, add new table and a new, so we're just going to call this one user. My singular and plural is coming back to, that's okay. We're just going to call this one active. Active user table, and new endpoint is going to be API user, and we'll also go active user endpoint. Cool. So now we're going to start with our get. And whenever I add a new endpoint, I pretty much just copy one of these guys down. And we're going to do get active user endpoint. Yep, send the request body through. This is nothing new. Yeah, I think that's all I care about right now. Okay, and then we're going to do get active user. We'll just call this one get user since we have that available. Yeah. Okay, so now let's find get users and see what we're doing up there. So we're going to need to call something similar to this. So I'll just start with pretty much this and call it get user. We have our response and our client. And now we're going to start with our single database, and our active user table is where we're going to go. And instead of just find, we are going to want to add a query. Let's say send in is true. What's that? Excellent. Okay, that's fine. All right, so yeah, there's more to be done here, but let's just get this coming through the front end, make sure. So where do we want to do this? Let's just do this in the account page. Since we can handle it in the user component afterwards, but the account is nice and isolated. So yeah, we're using the data service here to get all of the users. Instead of doing that, I want to have one user. See, this is what we want to avoid, doing this JavaScript find function. So I want to have one user in state. Yeah. Okay. Alt nothing, and then we'll have user props. Yes. And we'll call it set user. Okay. So let's get rid. Okay. Yeah, we've got to have a separate use effect for this. So we'll go use and in here, we're just going to want to do this on mount. If you do an empty dependency array like that, pretty much just only do it on mount. Here we're going to say skills. We're going to want to make this a function. User. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much the same thing that we got here, except we don't need any headers, I don't think. Yeah, we probably could have used this since we don't need any headers, but I'm just fed up with this data service. I don't want to use it right now. It needs a lot of work. So what am I? Yeah, I didn't copy that end down. That was so itchy in the spring like this. I need to do this. Okay. Nice. Yeah, we don't have to do anything fancy with like the loading right now. It's just set user to data. Ink. wonder why we're doing data 0. This is coming from the trades API. Oh, user value. Yeah, so this is only going to return one record. Okay, we don't even have to worry about that. Let's do check that. And then we'll do oh, this has to be yeah, and we don't need headers for this one. We're just going to call this user. Should be good there. Don't need this. And here we want to check nothing. I think we'll just do fetch. See how that goes. All right, so now we don't know. This doesn't matter for now. Yeah, we broke the UI, but we've got our request to users still because we left that hook there. So there's all of our users, and here's, all right, this didn't work. Let's see what our headers are. Actually, we didn't set any, so that is right. But this doesn't say that we got 200, so something's wrong. So let's see what we might have done. Just want to make sure all of this makes sense. User API, yes. So the request is going, let's say, Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, something's broken here. Active user table is not defined. Is that a typo? Active AC, yeah, it is, okay. Yeah. So let's go get that. Those are the worst. Oh, it's right here. Let's make sure this is everywhere that it has to be. I think these are actually the only two places. Okay. We will save that, let this guy restart. Oh, this is actually gonna work now. Maybe not. At least it knows someone is signed in, but yeah, now trades is not gonna work, I guess. I'm not sure what's going on there, but user 200 and shit. That's why. Okay, we're not getting the user through. But we are signed in, so. Signed in true, this is what we're checking for. Let's make sure this all makes sense. Get user, collection, active user table. Yeah, this just doesn't make sense that we want to use the same table. We don't need a new table. We still want to use, yeah, this table doesn't exist. I was just getting confused here, guys. Cool, we'll restart that and see if we find a user that's signed in. In the users table. Do we? We do. And there is S Pope. So this works. Now we have a single user and we know that they are signed in. So as far as this not working, let's hook that up correctly. I wonder why that's not working actually. It's because we're not getting our user into state, maybe? So we're seeing this whole profile component. So that means that this is true and we are getting our user into state. But see, before we were seeing the sign up, and that was because we weren't even seeing a user. But what we're not seeing, first of all, we're still seeing this. So calculating isn't getting flipped off. Okay, and that's because this request is going bad for some reason. Okay, so this is not getting fulfilled. Maybe this is not going through correctly. Oh, we have another error down here, so this will probably give us a good hint. Okay, so when we try to get the user, what the fuck? User value. Let's take a look at our state. I feel like the user is probably the wrong thing. Maybe this is wrong. I don't know why I put that. User. Yeah. User is the array. We want to set user to data 0. Yeah. So now that's our user. We get our correct cache value, but we're still calculating equity. Back to here. No. Hey. All right. So we're back in business, and this is still wrong, obviously. So now, we're only looking at this. And instead of just pulling this right from the database, we want to, first of all, get this out of the database, but that doesn't have to be done in this video. We want to calculate this using the database. So I actually started on this yesterday, but it was just like creating complete chaos because I didn't have a good strategy like this. So I have some code snippets for this that will be helpful, but we essentially want to use Mongo to join to the trades table. So instead of find, we're going to do aggregate. And aggregate takes an array. And we're going to just start listing off our array. This. And signed in true actually has to be in a match object. So we'll set that up. Match is what we want to do. Okay. You just do this. You just aggregate with a match. We should get exactly the same thing in here. So let's just make sure that that is all still good. And it's not. Seems that we did something wrong. So that's a good thing to check. Match signed in true. Get user. What did this say? Oh, it was maybe just not even started yet. What was that? Oh, yeah, we didn't. No. What's going on over here? Maybe this thing is just, yeah, it wasn't caught up. Performance is not great when streaming like this. Okay, so we're fine. User, same thing that we were expecting. Good, good. So yeah, let's add a new aggregation. That is gonna look something like this. We want to join to trades. Where even am I? Yeah. So we can do this lookup and go to the trade table, and then we're going to say locally, we want to look for the ID, which is my user ID, and we want to join to the foreign field user ID, which is in the trades table. We're going to call this object trades. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, generally, I don't think it's that helpful to like think about NoSQL in terms of SQL, but like you hear me saying this is what it's like to do a join, blah blah blah. Those are like SQL terms, obviously. Sometimes I think it's good, but for most of the NoSQL stuff, I really just think like I just use the documentation and try to solve problems piecemeal. I don't usually think about it. Like I'm trying to solve a SQL problem. This that needs to go off of a loading state because that's getting annoying. See that sign up component pop down. User. Here are our trades. So these are all the trades that are in the trades table and have my user ID tied to them. So my ID would be this, and user ID seems to match right here. Same for this. So these are going to be all buys except for the last one, I think, which is when we, sold our one share of Adam Makoka. So yeah, there's some evidence of that actually being accurate. So now we have all of our trades. What do we want to do with them? We want to take all of them and say, so we have the price each player at the time of trade. So this once again does not solve our problem. This one is 401D, which is Aaron right here. So you can see that in the bottom left. His ID is 401D. And actually, let's find Bradley Beal. It's going to be somewhere like right here. Price $3 now. Price 105. Yeah. So this is Bradley Beal. Here's 4,003. Yeah, it looks like he's 4,003. And this says that we bought 2 shares for 105. That's right. We want that in the trades table because we want to know what the price was when the trade happened on this day, which was whatever, 2 days ago. And what we can do with this information is take the player's ID and now join to the player table too, and find out the current price of Bradley Beal. So we have the price that we don't care about for the user value, but we want to go to the player and get his value. So how are we going to do that? First, we want to do what's called unwinding. This I think this is kind of like a pivot, honestly, but I don't even know that much about SQL to say that confidently. But I know this is what we have to do. So, like I said, it's not that useful to think about its database in terms of SQL. So we're just going to do unwind. Trades. And we'll see what we get from that. I think this is helpful to just, you see we're getting the same problem. Since I'm streaming, everything needs time to catch up to itself. Okay, so now we're listening. Let's see what our players look like. So now we have 10 records of me. See, this is still just all of my user, what's it called? Information. But we are unwound, which means that we have a single trade tied to each record here. So yeah, that doesn't seem that helpful, but I think it will be just to keep everything at the top level here. Because now we want to join out to, it's hard to like loop with the NoSQL database, but you could do this so that you have more records and can kind of do your joins piecemeal, because we want to just join 10 times pretty much. We have 10 trades here. We want to join 10 times and each time get the player's correct, like the player's most recent price, most up-to-date price. So we're going to do the same thing that we already did, like a lookup. Yeah, we're going to do another one of these, but this time we'll look up based on our unwound data that we've already looked up. So this is going to now go to the player table. Come on. this guy, and our local field is going to be trades player ID. And then the foreign field will be just ID. Player. Wow, that is really going to get old. Oh, we've been going here 45 minutes. Yeah, this is getting kind of long form. Let's see what we get over here. So now we still have our 10 records, but in each one we have our player. And here's his prices. Okay, so atoms have never changed, but if we go down to, I think it was 6, yeah, 4,003, we now see Bradley Beal's most list of prices. Okay, so what we want to do is target this guy. And the way we're going to do this is we're actually just going to use group, which is, once again, not exactly, but sort of like group by in SQL. So we're going to unwind this again so that we don't have to worry about it being a list. And then we will group by the price. We can do some calculations when we do that. So we'll unwind player, and then we're going to say group, and you give an ID to group. So this is just how I'm going to pull in all of the other data that I need from the user. Honestly, some of this is like pretty irrelevant. Because like at this point, never mind. Like we want to pretty much still know the username. We just don't need the password anymore because we're not doing auth. So I left the get users endpoint because when we do auth, we do want to pull in all of the users and like loop through them, or figure out if the user that's trying to get into the product is legit or not. But yeah, we don't care about that here, so we can pretty much just take username, ID, and yeah, signed in, even though it's pretty obvious that they're signed in. They've gotten to this point in the query, and we want cache. So that's what we're doing here. It's kind of a hack, but we're just assigning it to this ID field. So now all of this information will be nested in there. And then what I'm doing is saying stock value. You should really call this equity, honestly. But I think it's called stock value in the front end, so we don't want to have to make all those updates right now, but I'll probably do that at some point. And we're saying the stock value field is a sum of multiplying all of the records, player, price, 3 times the trade, the quantity of the trade. So this is going to do this, multiply these together for all 10 of the trades that we're getting, all 10 of the records that are getting returned from this query, and then sum all of those. So we're going to end up with just one stock value number. Hopefully. I guess I'll sit here and wait for this to catch up so that we don't have to see our nice error message again. So now I don't think our UI is gonna all show up anymore. Yeah, this will be wrong. This will be wrong because that is all sequestered in our ID field now. So here's our stock value of 116. So that's good because that's higher than, so that's what we were expecting to go up by like $20. And then here's all of our other information. So let's make the UI look at this so that we can still get something happening on the front end. And in order to do that, we're going to have to fetch the trades with user.id.id. Like this. ID, the actual user ID is now inside of this ID object. There's got to be a better way to do this, honestly, but oh, and now it doesn't like that because of TypeScript. So let's cheat this quick. Just call this any. This should go away. ID does not exist on type string. Yeah, nice. So we got to find everywhere where we're like looking for some property in user and replace it with correct location. Yeah. ID.username. ID.cache. Where is this coming from? Oh. Oh. Yeah, so this is still going to come from, I don't think this is going to hurt anything if it stays there, but we don't want this to reference that. You want it to reference user.stockValue. We don't want to get this from state anymore because that's like coming from the back end somewhere. I don't really know exactly how. Let's try it like this. See how that does. Maybe we're just going slow here. Oh, so we did get our, yeah. Nice. Cool, so then we get our actual equity through here. And now, in the user component, So yeah, how can we actually do that? Yeah. We just want to go to where we call the multiple users endpoint, which is here. This is our user component. We just feed it the active user. So I think we can do the same thing instead of this. So let's just rip this out. Throw it right there, and then also take this. Import use state and use effect. Add all missing imports. Excuse me. Oh, we do need this. Let's call this active user. I think we're using the loading of this hook, so I'm just gonna leave it. This is also, I think the type is not gonna love this. So let's get rid of our type in here quick. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's already set to any. Nice. So maybe we're good. See how this goes. No bueno. Okay, what is going on in there? Probably looking at the wrong data. Yeah, user dot user. Did it know my username? No, didn't. Okay. So yeah, same deal here. Dot ID and dot ID. Same. Oh, user stock value is good. Let's see if we get this. Bang. Okay, cool. Wait, I think that's maybe right. Yeah, it looks 27 seems a little high, actually. I mean, how could it be wrong? How could I have gotten anything wrong? We're talking about, yeah, 100,016 plus 11. Seems like this is accurate. Okay. I think we are all set. That was, that actually went better than I expected. So yeah, I'm not sure how well this will scale. I think maybe if this were a real app, we would have to think about this a little differently because, you could have multiple users signed in at a time. So I don't know if that endpoint is incredibly practical, but that's something that I have to kind of think through on my own. Anyway, yeah, for now, this will be a good solution. And I think, yeah, I learned some important lessons here. So I hope you guys learned something. Please let me know if you guys have any suggestions for how I can make any improvements here. Hopefully, we'll be doing this more often. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a good one.